There you go. Needed 2 pushes of the button to do it. So, Michael, I'm glad that you had appreciated those videos. So those were quite interesting. And it's like the CGI or the graphics that I have in my head that I wished I could show people. And so they have the stuff, especially the fractals are really, really an interesting thing when you look at that. And you have to let the mind go. You can't try to understand it with conventional wisdom or knowledge. It's something that because these fractals could be, the size of a little quark, or it could be the size of universes moving in what do you call it, syncrasy, where they're moving all together. And it's very interesting because they talk, to me, one of the first things that I saw that was really, really important was that everything moves in a spiral. And it blew me away when the astronomers discovered that the entire universe and all of the galaxies in the universe were moving in a spiral. And it just kind of blows your mind when you start seeing these things like that. And you see the symbol, and that's why I hold this symbol so powerful. Oh, wait a minute. I have it right here. Let me see if I can do this. Oh, wrong side. The wand. And this symbol is so powerful, and it means a myriad of things, uncountable, but it also is showing how everything moves in a spiral. If you look at trees and how the leaves grow on a tree, it's all growing in a spiral. Everything is just this way, the flow of air is the same thing. So you find these kinds of things, and ancient civilizations discovered them, and then they messed their religions up. They had all these things there. The Hebrews had there with the Kabbalah, and even the Christians had it. But then they wanted to anthropomorphize the deity in their own image, and then they messed everything up. And all of a sudden, it became a practice of rules and commandments. You have to follow these commandments rather than a Gnostic experience. And so that's kind of where, and then they'd also discovered that you could scare the heck out of people and control them with religion. And so after that, everything was lost in terms of it. But when you look at it, like they were showing on that program, you even see that wand symbol in Indian, the Native American. Well, it's in Indian, but in Native American, they also have the wand symbol in their culture. So it's kind of interesting. Okay, let's get going. I got off track, so apologize. Hello to everyone here. That was the pre-show. Okay, and what I was talking about is on WeChat, I submitted something of a program that I was watching that was quite interesting in terms of explaining things that can't really be explained. But some of the visuals they had were very useful in terms of it. And it was the only time when I looked at something I said, I could use that instead of my primitive drawings. So to those who are the editors of this, you don't need to put this first part in. Now it's just a pre-show. So, okay, join palms, bow. 4 great vows. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. I vow to cut off endless vexations. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood. Welcome to you all for our Monday night class. I see Eon's back in one piece. So he just went to a retreat. Maybe a few others went to the retreat, but welcome back. You missed everything. I last week I talked about the meaning of life, so you'll have to get it next lifetime. So you missed it, but that's okay. You might catch it on a rerun. In any case, we're going to start with where I left off last week. And what I was talking about last week was kind of lacing together all of the different sutras that come into play, that are the major sutras in the practice of Chan. Not ones that are peripheral, because there's countless sutras that are there that are peripheral, and some that kind of went, let's say, beyond, but they're still there, but they're not the ones that people talk about. When people say, oh, I'm going to talk about Chan, they'll say, well, let's talk about the Lotus Sutra, or let's talk about the Vatamsaka Sutra, the Huayan Jing. They will talk about the Heart Sutra. We missed out last week on the platform, so I'm going to be bringing that in as well. Of course, the Diamond Sutra. And so what I wanted to do, and it's impossible for me to have this comprehensive discussion about these sutras. All I want to do is get you kind of your beak a little bit wet with this, so that you have a taste of what this what these sutras are, in case you haven't seen them, or how they string together, why they're valuable. Time doesn't permit me to go into real deep historical perspectives. What I want to do is show you the doctrinal commonality of it and the ways that they're pointing, and showing the practice within them. And so when you see that, hopefully that will help you understand the sutras and not be afraid to explore the sutras. Probably, I would think the biggest mistake you could make is to try to start reading the Avatamsaka Sutra and from the page 1, because it could be very ponderous. But if you just sometimes just open up a sutra and read a part, you'll be very surprised what you get out of it. And so that you're not burdened by some of the beginning where they were talking about countless Buddhas, and it seems like they're talking about countless Buddhas because it's page after page of Buddha names. But there's quite a bit that's there. Some of the sutras, they're more patterned well. Some of them, the Avatamsaka Sutra, kind of all over the place in terms of how it's presented, because some of these sutras, they could be said to have been a compilation of different teachings, and then they were brought together so that to represent something. But again, we talked about that last week, this Vayapula, which is the idea that one sutra contains the importance or the essence of the Buddha Dharma. And in the Mahayana Vayapula, these could be said to be those that have that that kind of an essence of a complete teaching of Buddha Dharma. Of course, there's different ways to say things, but the essence of it as to what is there is fine. That's why when I see Harry and he concentrates on the Lotus Sutra, it's in his roots that he's going to do that, in his karma. But nevertheless, that one sutra, I would never tell Harry, hey, Harry, you should be studying something else. No, that's passé now. That was like in the 80s, I would say, no, go for it, because he has a drive and that's his way of studying. We all have our way of studying. Some of us, would settle for the cartoon versions of things, or comic versions, but it's probably better to start. The Chinese have the saying of that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. So just simply opening up a sutra and to to study it is something. Even if you only read 2 or 3 pages, the merit and the habitual pattern of doing that sutra is going to draw you in. It's going to pull you in, and you're going to feel like, oh, I want to read some more. And it's very interesting in that way. It's very, very strange. Sometimes I'll have somebody that asks a question, and I'll go to a book and I say the answer's in here, and I'll open the book and there's the answer. And I just randomly opened up the book, but there's the answer. There's something about the sutras that are self-teaching. So when we say self-teaching, it's not the self of the ego, but the self-nature that teaches self-nature. It's written by the self-nature, and it presents itself to the self-nature. So I often refer to this as the esoteric aspect of Buddha Dharma, that which is not written in words, but it is pointing to mind. And as one begins to do that, there is a self-absorption that happens, so that the ego is absorbed, but also what remains is the self-nature of mind. This in turn produces a realization. And sometimes the realizations are very short and lasting and short in the depth. Other times it can be something very, very profound. We don't set out to look for these nuggets. We just simply practice, and that practice will draw these realizations to mind itself, because it is not that the ego is picking up anything or understanding anything. It is just this dross that's on the silver is now being wiped away, and underneath there is this incredible shiny bright substance, which is mind. It doesn't mean that the dross is not part of mind. It's just that as we use it via ignorance, we allow dross. This dross is like on some kind of a metallic surface that doesn't make it shiny. Something that is impure. Like if you have silver that's 99.99999% pure, it's pretty pure. But if you have silver that isn't that pure, then that means there's other things there, and those things are impediments. So 24 karat gold is pure gold, but 12 karat gold has a lot of other stuff in it. And so a lot of you are walking around with 12 karat gold, unfortunately, a lot of people are walking around with gold plated, I don't know what, nickel or something, but what we really want to do, and the wisdom that's there, is to destroy the ignorance, so that we're no longer abiding in the world of illusion, and that we overcome that. And that's what these sutras are talking about. So let's kind of pour into the sutras and see where we're going. The first thing I wanted to do is talk about the term Ekayana. Let me see, where's my, I'll find it. Ekayana, does that read right, or is it backwards? It's okay, all right. Ekayana, and we've talked about this quite a bit. This seems to be one of Esther's projects that she studies quite a bit in trying to get to the understanding of, and which is really, really good. I encourage her to do that, because she's going like, what does Ekayana mean? And so at first she believed that it was just this kind of a vehicle of that, but it's more than vehicle, because the vehicle of the mind itself is mind. And so all of those things come there. And it's not even the one. It is where the one returns to. And that's very, very important to understand. It's where the one returns to. But if we do not have this kind of an idea of Ekayana, then we'll never be able to penetrate or obtain a realization. So I wanted to read a little bit about Ekayana. It says, Ekayana Sutras of primary influence are the Lotus Sutra, Srimaladevi Simhanada Sutra, the Ratnagotra Vibhaga Sutra, and the Tathagata Garbha Sutras. And then it mentions some of the Tathagata Garbha Sutras and the Vatamsaka Sutra and Lankavatara. So you see some of the names from the Chan school are there. The other ones, for instance, the Lion's Roar Sutra, Srimaladevi Sutra, the Ratnagotra Vibhaga Sutra, are sutras that are much deeper. They're Tathagata Garbha Sutras. They speak to the Buddha nature and move beyond even the Mahayana school in terms of how the Mahayana school perceives things into this Buddha nature. Now, hopefully I'll get into that and explain that a little bit from the Huayan side. And but these sutras are tied to this single vehicle. And I would put in there, obviously, the Platform Sutra for sure. And let me read a little more for you. The Indian Buddhist monk Bodhidharma, who is considered the founder of Chan Buddhism, was said to have brought the Ekayana school of southern India to China. And he passed it down along with what sutra? Anybody know? What sutra did Dhammo bring with him?
Lankavatara.
Yeah, Lankavatara Sutra. Of course, the ancient master would say if he brought anything, he couldn't have even saved himself. But that's a little deeper. Sorry, I have to laugh at that. And so that, and he delivered that to his primary disciple, Hueka. And with Hueka, then we start seeing the Chan lineage, which continued for 6 patriarchs. There is a master who was a master of Chan and Huayan. His name was Guifeng Zongmi. Anybody in Chinese? Can you correct my Chinese? Guifeng Zongmi.
Guifeng Zongmi.
That's what I said. Thank you. Thank you. Say it again.
Guifeng Zongmi.
Guifeng Zongmi. Okay, thank you. In any case, little by little, I will get a better pronunciation on these. But this master, he said in his treatise, the original person debate, he explicitly identifies the Ekayana teachings as the most profound type of spiritual realizations and equates it to the direct realization of one's own nature. So he's saying, okay, we have this, we have Mahayana, we have all this, but this Ekayana school is a direct realization of mind. And so here, what type of teaching would you think that he's pointing to then? Double points if you get this, anybody. Beyond emptiness and wisdom. Nobody?
No self?
No self. Beyond that.
Compassion.
Beyond compassion, that's still in the Heart Sutra.
Buddha nature. Buddha nature.
Buddha nature, yes, Buddha nature. So from the Tathagata Garbha Sutras, he's looking directly at the practice and a realization, more importantly, the realization of Buddha nature, which comes here, and it follows completely with Ekayana. It's a natural progression to go this way. So if you see this and you begin to understand, you can amuse your friends, especially your Buddha friends. No, Buddha nature. But you can, it helps you understand. It helps you get this right. You know, you've got to put these all together like building blocks and then use that to practice from. So he said in this particular original person debate, he said, Buddhist teachings itself goes from shallow to profound. So the shallow could be the Four Noble Truths. The profound could be the 12 Nidanas. In outline, there are 5 classes. 1, the teaching of human and heavenly beings. So we teach the humans and heavenly beings. What do we teach them? So we teach them the Four Noble Truths: suffering, the existence of suffering, the cause of suffering, and then the path, and to nirvana. And we teach nirvana to keep the baby, to stop the baby from crying, but it's not high level. Okay, even if you get to that, and then that's why the Heart Sutra came along later on and said, you know, there is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cessation of suffering, and no path. So it clarified that. So this is a little bit of a jump up in the training. So the second one is the small vehicles Hinayana teaching, and we'll edit that to be because he at that time in the 800s wasn't speaking politically correct. So it would have been edited now to say the small vehicle or the alternative vehicle of a Theravadan school. And what does the Theravadan school teach? 2 things that you should know in the Theravadan. At least get 1. What, Ian, you fell asleep? You're off of the time? Michael? Come on, you guys. Harry?
Emptiness of self.
I'm sorry?
No self.
No self.
Impermanence.
Impermanence.
3 seals.
The 3 seals.
And the 4 walruses.
No, I am the walrus. So anyway, well, you're not quite where I was thinking you would be with all of this, but they in the Hinayana school, that one is everything is real, and that the ultimate goal is what?
Nirvana.
There you go, nirvana. And so the ultimate goal of the practice is nirvana, that you're going to arrive at some place. And so this is something that what Guifeng Zongmi said was still, that's the second class. And so the next class is the great vehicle, Mahayana teaching of the Dharma characteristics. So now Mahayana is only 3rd. It only takes a bronze, but at least it had a podium finish. But it only takes a bronze. It's only 3rd, but this is a Mahayana school. And so Fen Zongmi, he's way ahead here with his Huayan and Chan, blending them wonderfully together. Beautiful in terms of what he's saying and laying it out and saying, let me explain this to you. No, and if you think it's this, you know, this is just low level, you know, Hinayana, low level, Mahayana, you're getting warmer. And so then the 4th one is because the first one was a teaching of Dharma characteristics. Dharma characteristics, we could say, could be the teaching of Pratika Samappada, cause and effect, how things come into being. And so the next one, I'll let you guess. What do you think the 4th one is? I'll give you a hint. Just follow along of what the first one, the third one said, the teaching of Dharma characteristics. So what would be the, I'm sorry?
Self-nature.
Self-nature?
I mean, the Buddha nature.
The Buddha nature. You're getting ahead. There's still one in between.
Tathagata Garbha.
Tathagata Garbha? No, that's where they're headed to. This one is the great vehicle teaching of destroying characteristics. No, destroying characteristics. So we'll have
Not
to go
self.
back. Well, self too.
Not
so
self.
It's what it's trying to say. It's not that it's teaching not self. It's teaching that all appearances are fundamentally empty because they follow mind. They're created by mind. This is very, very important to know. All the Buddhas of the past, present, future perceive that all Dharma, Dhatu, nature, all phenomena is created by mind. So this is like, wow, you know, this is very, very important. It's a little bit of a tweak up. So when some of you are playing on Mahayana or you're playing in Theravada, I always tweak you up to try to get you to the next level. And so somebody who's here is going, well, this is it. You know, everything's created by mind. But then we get to the last one, which you guys were champing at the bit at, and that's this, the one vehicle's teaching of manifesting nature. And so this manifesting nature is that everything by nature of it being mind is mind, and it manifests its nature. And that brings about this this highest level of karuna, this interest in other sentient beings. And there's a very careful distinction here that we have to be careful of, because if we go too far this way, we will run into this being monism, being like an entity that is creating everything, like a deity. Like Christianity is monism, that everything's created by God. And so a lot of people, even to this day, there's some Japanese scholars that are just all over this and trying to say that Buddhism, once it went to Tathagata Garbha, is a monistic religion. It's not. It's their ignorance that they cannot understand what is happening here. And so again, we're like fine-tuning at this point in terms of what I'm talking about, but it is just the nature of the mind to do this. But the nature of the mind does not have any characteristics. It creates impressions, mental formations and impressions and phenomena, but only in accordance with causes and conditions, pratika samappada. And once we shift over to this compassion, that leaves room for those scholars to say, oh no, there's somebody behind all of this. But who is to say that mind, in its most wonderful infinite light, can't be made of compassion? Just as an essence of it to be this way without having to create a God, or to say, oh, this Buddha is in heaven sitting next to Jesus Christ or whatever. That's still appearances. But it requires a lot of us to be able to make that jump into the void, to be able to realize this. And this is where this master, Zongmi, he was pointing his finger to, as far as he could point it, to this direct realization. And this is what distinguishes the Chan school. Now, a lot of people believe the Chan school has nothing to do with study or sutras or doctrine. That's baloney. It requires the two. Even Bodhidharma talked about the entry in as one of principle and practice. And so that was from the very beginning of the Chan school. We have this, and they have to be balanced. If we're too much on the principle, we become a scholar. If we're too much on the practice, we tend towards ignorance because we don't have enough to be able to balance there and look at this. You need to look at this. You need to feel it in your heart. And when you feel it, then it works. So this was, when I came upon this today, this was wonderful. It was where I was looking for. And so this last one that he's talking about is the Tathagata Garbha school of Buddha nature and where everything is going. But don't think that was not something known to the Chan practitioners. Maybe not the people that were devotional at that time and go to the temple to burn incense or whatever. But the true practitioners, the ones that carried this Chan tradition to this time period, this was known to them. And this was an incredible one. And so we owe a lot to those who were the scholars that were not just scholars, but practitioners, and were able to penetrate through this. So I'm glad to have done that and then kind of tied these together. Let me see here. Now, oh, that's what that was done. I want to go to two books on the Lankavatara, and I realize now that I've been doing this and trying to tie these all together, this is not going to be like two or three sessions. This is going to go on for a while. To give the topic its due, because what I'm trying to do is intertwine all of these sutras where you can see where they're coming from. On this, on going back to the Lankavatara Sutra, and this is out of Red Pine's commentary on it, and I want to read a few things and see if they help you at all. Just as the Diamond Sutra teaches detachment from dharmas, and the Heart Sutra teaches emptiness of dharmas, the Lankavatara teaches the non-projection of dharmas, that there would be no dharmas to be empty or to be detached from if we do not project them as existing or not existing in the first place. So this is kind of coming to the realization that mind is just mind, and if anything is being appearing, it appears within mind. It does not appear within a reality. So this is the departure from the Abhidharma, where they say everything is real. Here we're looking at it and we're saying everything is mind, and that's exactly what the Lankavatara Sutra is doing in its way with playing with Madhyamika and the Yogacara school, known as consciousness only or mind only school. And so it's looking at that, but it's also leaning very heavily on the Madhyamika school, because if we just simply looked at the Yogacara school and said everything is just mind, we might get into an idea that mind is real rather than it's neither existent nor non-existent. The Madhyamika school says absolute truth, that there's apparent reality and absolute reality. But it doesn't say if either one of them truly exists. It's just simply stating these things are there. It doesn't need to say whether it exists or not, because where would it exist? Where would that knowledge that this is true exist. The truth is in the truth, not in what I say what the truth is, or what you say, or what you think is the truth. The truth is just the truth. And what's another name for truth? I'll give you a hint. Sometimes they call the Buddha that. Yeah, go ahead.
Thusness.
Thusness. There you go. There you go. So thusness, that's the truth. This is this absolute truth of the way things are, the Tathagata. And in this, there's not there's a realization that there is not an opposite to it. We can call things illusory. Is it real or not real? It doesn't have a lasting substance to it, so it's impermanent. But we cannot say that it didn't appear right then. So if I go like this, and did you see that or not see that? Did you see it or not see that? What did I do something silly or not? Is there a truth to that? It appeared, but is it lasting? Can we say because it just came in that moment, it's gone? And then how do we define it? How many little tiny microseconds? I probably Michael would be able to tell me the measurements of like many things. You know, does it have to exist to be true? And does that mean there's a duration that's true or not? And what would we measure it against? So all of this is this thinking from the Madhyamika school. And as we begin to look at this, and if you read into the Madhyamika school, the refutation of Nagarjuna in terms of time and form, it's incredible. And he doesn't say, because of this, then ergo this is there. He just says, because of this, then this, which is different, because that's Pratikasamapada.
Yeah.
What the Buddha taught. Yes, Mark.
So I think you just concluded with or went to what I was going to state, in that isn't everything thus this? Because everything that's experienced is as a result of causes and conditions. So it's all true. Everything is true.
Or it could be false. Because who do you call the truthness? The truth is the thusness. And so you're saying truth, but don't mix phenomenal truth with the truth of thusness.
So I'm thinking,
so be careful about that. You're right there, and you're like swirling around the void. But this grasping onto this truth is it can be an epiphany, but it also can be something that can pull you away from it. So you have to look at that, and you're there, you know, otherwise you wouldn't have had this kind of a aha moment. But look at it the way that what Rick was saying, from the heart. And what you got was this instant insight, which is good. But then once you started talking, then you tied yourself down. And so you've got to see that. I mean, because you're right there. And you had that moment. It only lasted like a short moment, but it's still not bad. It's not bad. Rick is like one of those bullfrogs, you know, that just sits there, doesn't move at all, especially now that he's getting older. And he, you know, every once in a while, he makes some sound, you know. And I hate to say that he's not ready to croak yet, but
no.
but he makes a sound, but his sound is us. And I really love him for it, you know. And so you're getting there, Mark. Just try to understand what I told you, and then you'll be able to break away from the notion of truth versus the thusness of the truth. But it's good. Okay,
Thank you.
let's go back to what time do I have? The time is like, it goes by like this in terms of here. So how do they get free from such attachments? The Buddha continues, by becoming aware of the projections are nothing but mind. Thus they transform their body and mind and finally see clearly all stages and realms of self-awareness of the Tathagata and transcend views and projections regarding the five dharmas and modes of reality. So this is the transcending of these views. So it's no longer a view, it's no longer the idea of a truth. It is just the way it is. And so I don't want to go into too much more on that part or try to explain it. I just wanted you to get a feeling for this. Having proclaimed the illusory nature of projections, including such yogacara categories as the five dharmas and the three modes of reality, the Buddha directs Mati to its source, namely consciousness itself. So here in the Lanka, there he's saying, oh, you have to see this. This is consciousness because it's being explained. This Ekayana is being explained by virtue of the Yogacara school's definitions of consciousness. And so when they say consciousness only, it's just mind. But there can be a confusion if we stay with that, because if we hold on to it just consciousness, then we think we can become confused that consciousness itself is mind, but consciousness is just a faculty of mind, but the vastness and infiniteness of mind is well beyond a definition of even, we could say, consciousness. That's my 2 cents. He then explains how consciousness works and how liberation consists of in realizing that consciousness is a self-fabricated fiction. There you go. So he got saved. Just another illusion, and how bodhisattvas transform their consciousness into projectionless Tathagata Garbha, from which Buddhas arise. I would say from that this is Buddha nature rather than where Buddhas arise. I don't think when we talk about saying arising of Buddhas, we're still on the phenomenal side if we refer to things in this way. There's no Buddhas to arise. You are the mind that you use. The truth of it is the Buddha nature, not other than the Buddha nature. If you peeled off your shirt, you would have, BN on your t-shirt underneath, flashing light, Buddha nature. You all have it, but you all are not it. It knows you, but you don't know it, and that's the problem. But what this Lankavatara is doing is trying to get you there by dispelling the idea that there's any appearances that have any origination apart from mind itself. So once we get to that point, then we work, and that's just how we practice this. Okay, hold on a second. And it says, such teaching is not something everyone is prepared to hear. All right. And so you try to teach this. Yesterday, one of my students, Miranda, was saying that she was trying to explain to her friends what I explained to her, and they thought she was crazy. they were so ignorant, they had no idea what she was saying. And she said it was very frustrating because they just continue to practice with this one person, you know, and it's all like baby steps. And I said, it's very, very hard. I had that happen all the time with students. I think even Michael encountered that at one time, you know, trying to explain something to people that he thought that were far along the way, and they weren't. And I don't know if Bill's here. Bill Foreman had that same situation, you know, where they're saying, yeah, sure, you know, kind of a thing, because it's very hard to do it. But what I told her was that even if you cause confusion in them, it's not bad, because what you're doing is laying down roots for their further practice. But if they're confused already, they're ignorant. That's why they can't hear it. It's like trying to teach the Buddha Dharma to a dog. And the dog would just go, you have a cookie, you know, or a biscuit. And that's their whole reason to live, or to be petted. And the thing is that I don't want to go around petting all you guys and say, oh, you're doing a great job. I love the way you had your legs crossed in meditation, you know, and the way you snored. I mean, that was really cute. No, I want to wake you up. I want to wake you up. And those who have a deep root, you're here. Congratulations, you're here and you're listening to this. And like they said, this is not something that everyone's prepared to hear, but nevertheless, you still try. You don't say, because they're not prepared to hear this, we don't teach it. That's absurd. Because maybe one of those will get it, to, obviously, by virtue of the people that are here, more people will get it. And little by little, they will teach the others. So then at the end, the Buddha said in answer, yet in a way that always leads his disciples back to the two teachings that underlie the sutra. So this is the key to the Lankavatara Sutra, is it's nothing but mind, which is Ekayana, but that comes from Yogacara, and from the Zen side, self-realization. So through all of these sutras, we see Ekayana there, and we also see self-realization. One of them is the doctrine, and the other one is the practice. Zen is this practice, but you have to know the doctrine to be able to know what you're doing with it. Let me see. I have another book. We'll stay on the Vatamsaka Sutra for right now. And this is commentary as well on the Lankavatara Sutra. We were reading from Red Pine's commentary, and this is D.T. Suzuki, and his commentary on his transcript of the sutra. And he said that the ideas that things are devoid of self-substance, that is, that they are by nature empty, that the world is nothing but mind, that in order to reach the ultimate end of Buddhahood, one must transcend all the limitations of dualism and particularization. And finally, that state of enlightenment must be realized. So he's saying the same thing Red Pine was saying in terms of what the emphasis is in the Lankavatara Sutra. It has to be realized within oneself. These are the common property of Mahayana Buddhism, but in the Lankavatara, these ideas are developed in a way peculiar to the sutra. By this, I mean it lays special emphasis on the importance of self-realization. Without such, the Buddhist life remains a mere philosophical exercise. And this is important because this is why I keep stressing, look, turn the mind's eye inward, really try to see this, jump into the void, because that is the self-realization. So when we talk about self-realization, it could almost be considered a misnomer, because it's not the realization within the ego. It's the realization that the ego is fundamentally empty, and that there is this Buddha nature. And that's very, very important to make a distinction. But one cannot get there simply by listening to words. You can get book learning to it, but you have to realize it. And realizing it is like if you had an egg and you were trying to break out of the egg, and you got your beak and you made like a little hole, then you see that there's something beyond this shell world that you're living in. You see something, even if it's a tiny thing, and then you see little cracks. So you know that this world that you're living in is not quite right. And it's very interesting, because I remember when I was practicing Qigong, I took to my master this drawing of an egg that was cracked all around it. And because sometimes that was the way I could describe things, is by drawing it. And I said, this is the way I feel, but I don't know if I want to go out. So I was expressing I have a fear of it. And he said something really important to me, probably the most profound thing he ever said. And he said, once the egg is cracked, there's no going back. It will break open on its own in due time. And it did, and for a while it's just little pecks, and then it shattered. But these are these self-realizations that come, and we need to understand that we can't go searching for them, but we have to set the platform for them to enable us to have an opportunity for those realizations to occur. They will occur, but if we look for them, we mess the whole thing up. We just have to have faith in that. That's why when Mark is looking at this and trying to put it together, I can see it, but then he got tied with the concepts again. But even that little thing is a little peck hole in the egg. And that's important. That's really important, because that enables him and gives him the faith to keep going on with it, and using this idea of truth as kind of like a Huatou. What is happening? Okay, let me try to finish up this part. Katie that said the same thing. Okay. Let me read you this part. Well, I'll read you two parts. The thesis of the sutra must be regarded as centered upon the idea of inner perception of the deepest truth. Again, this inner perception, you could consider it to be turning the mind's eye inward. And so now we're talking about the deepest truth. So hang in there, Mark, you'll get it. Which goes beyond language and reasoning, So you cannot use language and reasoning to make this transition. The Buddhist discipline or exercise is told by the Buddha consists of two parts, philosophical and practical. That's what I tell you guys all the time. So what I just said about that those are the two aspects of it that are very important. This is what the Buddha was emphasizing. This is what Bodhidharma was emphasizing. And it all comes in, boom, there you go. Here's the Lankavatara Sutra for you. Thank you. And so the next part is that the one thing I wish to notice in the Lankavatara before I proceed to describe the nature of inner realization is that this sutra does not make one reference to the awakening thought of enlightenment. So this is very crucial because it's not something that we say, oh, I'm going to become enlightened, because it's Ekayana. It's presupposed that the mind that you're using is the Buddha nature. There is no enlightenment. The only thing is there's an awakening of that this very mind is that way, but you do not become enlightened. No, you don't become that way. I remember I went to Taiwan to give a retreat there, and it was Christmas time. And I told them there that at the end of the retreat, I would show them what an enlightened person is like. And when I was there, I think Eon was there, and I had gotten a string of Christmas lights at the airport. I didn't know what to do with it. They gave it as a gift. So I said, I'll take it. So I went behind the board I was using to draw things on, and I draped all these lights all over me, and then came out in front of everybody with all these lights turned on. And they were like laughing and laughing. I said, this is enlightenment, you know, to kind of dispel the notion, don't be looking for enlightenment like that. And I said, but wait, there's more. And I pressed the button and they all started blinking. And that just cracked up it took me a long time to get the Taiwanese to understand my humor. But that was like the best part of it, was that they really cracked up laughing in terms of that. This is saying, don't search for that kind of enlightenment, is what he's saying. So we're almost there. Let's see. The awakening of the thought, oh, excuse me. I missed something. Because this follows here. This is a discussion here where it says, to be great in the exercise that makes up bodhisattvahood, one has to be an expert in 4 things, 3 of which are intellectual, and the last is practical. First one, to perceive clearly that this visible world is no more than mind itself. So this is understood, Ekayana. This is the doctrinal understanding of it. To abandon the notion of birth, abiding, and passing away really take place. So you let go of this idea. You like, how much time do I have to, to live on this planet? Where am I going afterwards? I don't even know what's going to happen. You just let all of that go. To be able to do this is what the ancients called experiencing the great death. I said it wrong. I might scare you guys. Experiencing the great death is not death at all. It's the death of the notion that there's a life and being, personality, or ego that will pass away. So one becomes fearless. That's why they talk about the lion's roar, because when one understands that clearly, then when we speak, there's a lion's roar, and illogical thinking and doctrine cannot stand before it. We don't have that fear anymore. To look into the nature of things external and realize that they have no reality. So what's external? Everything, anything that moves is external. You have a thought in your mind, that's external. But in the way when we talk about it, we're not really saying external and internal. We're saying that this is a mere bubble in a stream, or a morning star, something that's there for a moment and then it's gone. Phenomenal. It doesn't have any reality to it. And then the fourth is to train oneself towards realization of the truth in the inmost consciousness by means of the supreme wisdom. Let me say this again to you, because this is what we do. This is mind work. This is mind work. To train oneself towards the realization of the truth in the inmost consciousness, by means of supreme wisdom. So we use this wisdom, Mahaprajna Paramita's wisdom, which is mentioned in the Lankavatara, and in the Heart Sutra, what is it called? I don't hear anybody. In the supreme wisdom.
Uttara Samyak Sambodhi.
All right, good. So Anyatara Samyak Sambodhi. Supreme wisdom. We use this wisdom. We use the Heart Sutra as a template to help us to be able to practice, but we have to practice it. We cannot just simply say, oh, I understand, that's the truth. No, it's not in this way. The truth is evident in the self-nature of mind. And this is important that we see things in this way. We live our life in this way. When we live our life in accordance with Buddha Dharma, we have a chance to make it out and to awaken to this realization. Now, even listening to the Buddha Dharma and listening to me, you may have some small realizations. Not bad. It's not enough to get you into heaven, but you might have some good realizations there. And those, I was kidding about the heaven part. So, but it's not bad. And you build upon that. And how you build upon it is continuously practicing, continuously letting go of abiding in anything, yet knowing that there is an importance to this. It's not nihilistic. And there's that fine balance point of saying real and nihilistic and Buddha mind. So Buddha mind is not a point in between the two. It encases the two. So I'll leave it there. We'll have some questions. We'll keep going from there. I kind of giving you kind of the greatest hits today, but hopefully that will help you kind of understand a little bit more and understand how the Chan school became so relevant, because people listening to this, even if they could not get it in a deep sense, at least understood that this was a good practice. Okay. So that's where we're at. We finished for today. Questions? No questions again.
Gilbert?
Yes.
Yeah, I just have that passage that you read about the inner consciousness. Where was that from?
Let me check.
D.T. Suzuki's Lankavatara Sutra.
But which chapter? Because
page 103.
Wow, you're right on it. Good. Yeah, exactly. Page 103. So you can take a look at it from there.
Because there's another, it's chapter 30 on page 70, where he says the four yogic practices which you repeated. A clear understanding of what is seen of mind itself, which Red Pine has projections of the mind. And the Chinese has what appears in the mind, and discard the notions of birth, abiding, and disappearance, and to look into the truth that no external world obtains. You know, Red Pine says has no existence, and seek for the attainment of inner realization by noble wisdom. That's in chapter 30. So I have to look on 103.
So the thing is that with all of this, don't look for to distinguish the two. Look for the common ground. This is very, very important. It's very important, Harry. And a lot of people, they're always looking to distinguish things. And so, I'll have people who are translators, and then they'll say, well, where did you get this translation? And I'll say something like from the Diamond Sutra, all that you should think of this fleeting world, is a morning star, dewdrop on a leaf, a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, a bubble in a stream, an illusion, a phantasm, a dream. And they go, we could not find that anywhere. We found parts of it. I said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You got to look for the heart. And so when you look for the heart, you can't see the forest for the trees. You listening, Esther? So I mean, sometimes it's not that we have to get it right or pick one between Suzuki and Red Pine, unless one of them's way, way off. But what you read me, Harry, they both are saying the same thing. When one's saying projections in the mind, I use that all the time. I use those kinds of analogies because it's more modern day understood, how something works, that these are projections. I always talk about how phenomena is projected on the walls of mind. But without the mind there, those projections could not even be seen. So it helps us go between apparent reality and absolute reality. So the two, they're not inconsistent in the way that they're talking about them. They're just using different jargon, as it is. And I don't know when Suzuki did his thing. It was several years ago.
1930s.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was all different then. Nobody had a projection TV then, and so it was hard to use that kind of thing. And as we go, we use a terminology that the present people understand. That's why I always say I never try to teach things about ox cart, because I myself have never seen an ox cart. And so I would have no. Lewis said he sees one. He must be like 700 years old. But how
do you get around LA?
I saw the ox cart near Dalian, and it was pulling corn.
Yeah, I imagine it wasn't in in Milan or Rome or anything. I imagine it was pretty far way out there. So, but in any case, that's what we do. So when you're looking at the things, don't look for what appears to be different. Try to find the heart. We know Suzuki, his heart was in the right place, and so is Red Pine. Red Pine strikes a chord to us because he's using contemporary jargon to explain things. So we have to kind of go back and try to feel that. But if you feel it in the right way, my gosh, it will pierce you. Whatever they're saying, it will pierce you. It's just amazing. Okay, any other questions? Esther, did you take offense with what I say?
Hi, Gilbert. I would like to know what is the difference between mental formations and mental impressions?
Same thing. I just use them, and sometimes I use them interchangeably. I'll talk about mental formations or mental impressions, something that you recall from a long time ago, something, it could be contemporaneous to, in this moment, a mental impression that you think that you're seeing somebody and go, I don't like that person. they look tricky or whatever, that's a mental formation. All of these things are there. And if we stick to them, then we become habitually suspicious of everybody, or not trusting or whatever, or opinionated or discrimination. When we put those aside, we use wisdom. It doesn't mean that we can't use wisdom to see somebody and say, oh, that person has something, that they have, and you use your mind in this way. I remember doing that with one of my secretaries, and she introduced me to her boyfriend. And it was very funny because I said to her, your boyfriend has a big secret. And she goes, what? I go, he has a big secret. And you ask him about it. And so you can use wisdom to be able to penetrate and to see things maybe other people can't sense, but you use the wisdom to do it. That's not discriminating. I don't want to hurt the person. I just don't want her to get hurt. And it turned out that he had like a couple of kids he hadn't told her about. So that was something important for her to know. But it's something that you're non-discriminating. The mental formations, they're okay as long as you don't discriminate, you don't cling to them. But if they become habitual, where I'm looking at everything and looking at all the screens saying, who's hiding something here? Let me see. Aha. Then that's different. But if it's something that's useful, then sometimes you can say the things.
So is it a byproduct of the 5 skandhas, or is it from our habitual tendency?
You could say both. You're talking about, but again, mental formations are not by themselves. What is the word that I was? Kusala, clinging thoughts. They can function. You function with these mental formations, but when you cling to them, then you produce subsequent replicas of those mental formations in the future, because you're creating a habitual tendency in mind. But in and of themselves, they're not bad if you let them go. If you don't let them go, then they become a habit. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else?
Hello. Hi. My
Yes,
name
go
is
ahead.
Nick. So I it's my first time here, and I really enjoyed this meditations. So my question is, how do you stop thinking? When you have a lot of thoughts, how do you stop thinking during meditation? Do you have any advice?
You don't have to suppress thoughts. All you have to do is realize that the thought has come into mind. The thought is naturally coming up. You cannot stop it, because by its nature, you've created mental energy that will have these thoughts coming up in your mind, whether they're recent or they're something that was a very big impact in you mentally or emotionally or whatever, or repetitive like work. So if you try to block your mind from that, and actually that was part of my lecture for tonight, we never got to that. So stay tuned, come back next week and we'll talk about that in more detail. But you'll see that you don't have to do that. You just simply have to realize that those thoughts are present, and using right view to realize that those thoughts are precisely where they should be, because you put them there through your habitual tendencies. So you don't have to do that. You just don't follow the thought. You hold on to the method and you'll do fine. If you try to purge your mind from thought, it's the wrong way, and whoever taught you how to meditate like that is not teaching you the proper way, and you'll really get frustrated. But if you just allow those thoughts to be there simultaneous with the method, but you're putting your mental attention on the method, those thoughts by their own nature will dissipate, and leave the scene. Now there might be other thoughts come up afterwards, but you become adept at keeping the mind on the method. You don't have to screen them. You just have to be aware that the method is what needs to be seen, not the other part. And so the method stays center stage, where all these other thoughts will come in a peripheral way, and then little by little they will dissipate. So try that, and I think you'll be a lot more happy camper. Okay.
Thank you. I'll definitely come back next week for your lecture on that topic. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Yes, Mark.
Can a practice manifest as a mental impression while you're sleeping, or in a dream while you're sleeping?
Yes. I've had several times when in the middle of the night, actually sometimes in series, where I was taught the Dharma in my sleep. And it just arises, and I get lectures, and nothing special about it. Master Shen had indicated it's your very mind that's teaching you. It's just that because when you're asleep, and if you're a sincere practitioner, that the mind is not occluded by other thoughts, so it's a natural flow that comes up. Okay. And I don't know how that works. All I know is there's times when I've been taught a sequence of lectures, related lectures, and they come and go. Sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. I never say, "Oh, tonight I want to go to school." Those things just come naturally. Okay, you don't give them any emphasis or say, "Oh, I'm so great because this can be done." You don't think that way at all. You just if you don't think about it in that way, then it's just something that's naturally arising, and it won't harm you. If you cling to it, then you'll become deluded, and you'll mess yourself up.
Let me frame it. Yeah, let me frame it in another way. While sleeping, I experience the practice. Am I practicing, or am I dreaming that I'm practicing?
When you're practicing, are you dreaming or are you practicing?
So I'm asleep, and I experience the practice. Am I actually practicing meditation, or am I dreaming that I'm?
Oh, you misunderstood. I was responding to your question.
I know I did. I'm not here.
The whole thing is that, what is the dream, right?
Right.
Is it the dream? Like right now, is this a dream, or is it a dream within the dream? And it's like that old Japanese thing that drives you crazy of dreaming of the butterfly, and it's the butterfly dreaming of you. The thing is, everything is a dream, everything is mind. So it's not to some, they would think that it is unusual, but to others they would see it clearly as just simply something that naturally happens. So we don't think about it. We don't have to look at it in that way. If you get an extra study session in, all the more so. Okay, but you don't try to when you do that, it's like you're creating an autopsy, and you start digging in and trying to see it, and you just mess everything up. But just it happens. I mean, just things like that just happen. Okay, so good. It's a good experience. Just read the Shurangama Sutra, the last volume. It talks about the 50 demonic states. And so there's different things that people will begin to experience. And some experience it on a high level, some experience it on a low level, or it's just something that happened. But you don't want to cling to any of those extra sensory experiences. Once you do that, you mess everything up. But if you don't, then you just move on.
Just let it all
go. Not bad. So you just keep going on. You don't stop. Don't ever get off the train. Okay. All right. Any other questions? 10, almost. Yeah, Michael.
Yes, I listened to your lecture yesterday, and at the very beginning, you had trouble with the Mahayana vows, and you commented on it. So you said, you started with the first vow, I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings, and then you said something which was different from what I expected. So you said from self-nature instead, and what I expected was from illusory self-nature, which somehow I think means totally different things. So I wonder whether at some point you could make a lecture about these things.
Yes, the thing is self-nature. When we talk about that, I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings of self-nature, it's Ekayana. It goes right back and says that these sentient beings are not other than mine. It is in this way. It is the truth. Or as Rick says, thus. It's just the thusness of things. And so when they say the first part is actually not as correct, I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings, you really want that second verse that says of self-nature of all of those, because that's what locks it all in. And it's important to know the difference. Okay, so it's not self-nature like ego, it's the self-nature of the Buddha nature.
Okay, so you mean the sentient beings who belong to self-nature, who appear in self-nature. So is it meant in this sense? Because I thought...
Yes, it's in that way. You could say, I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings of Buddha nature.
Belonging to Buddha nature.
Yeah, of Buddha nature, because where else would it appear?
No, I thought because delivering from means one takes away something. So this is how it could be misunderstood.
No, you're just using your analytical squirrel cage again.
Sure,
so you got to stop, or what is it, hamster cage, where you're just going like that. Don't just let that go, and one day just take it off of its little pivot points and just spin them out, and you'll be fine. Well, it's important because where you're at and what you're saying is precisely where I was the first time I read that, and I went, huh? That doesn't make sense. But then once I studied and I understood what self-nature was, then it made perfect sense.
Yes, I just asked because at some point I thought I heard you mention from illusory self-nature, which also would make sense.
Yeah, yeah. I'm often confused, but the self-nature is true.
Okay, thank
you. Gilbert, the Brad Warner, a Zen teacher, says, I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings from me. Right? So kind of
from me.
From me, in other words, I'm going to remove myself from everybody else's hair. I won't be a problem anymore.
Yeah, it's a tricky way of saying things because it could be misunderstood, just like self-nature is. But I mean, I understand what he's saying, because it's saying, okay, well, that's a start, and so that's not bad. It reminds me of the Beatles song about driving your car, and says, I have to tell you, and it's breaking my heart, but I don't have a car. And they said, well, I have a driver, and that's a start. So, as long as we have a practice, that's a start. So good. Anything else? Nothing today? All right. Okay, well, I still have one more class at CMC on meditation, and that one's going to be more of the meditation side this time. I kind of loaded everybody up in what meditation is and what meditation is not. So that's good. And then we're going to continue on with this, because I think this will give you a very, very well-rounded exposure to these sutras and how they're all connected, and so that you really become well educated. Again, Master Sheng was very, very much someone that emphasized the education of the Sangha. And I consider you, Sangha as well as you're connected and you're part of the community, the Buddhist community. So the more we become educated, the better it is. Is just sometimes you have to be careful when you talk to other people because they won't know what key you're playing in, but that just comes with time and you'll be able to sort through it. Okay. So see you next week. Amitofo. Blessings to you all.
Thank you,
Take care.
Gilbert.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Good
Thank you,
seeing you.
Gilbert.
Amitofo.
Thank you all.
Gilbert.
Gilbert.
Have a good
See
one.
you
Thank
all.
you, Gilbert.
Peace to all.
Take care.
See you